Peace. All right, everyone, welcome. Thank you all for coming out here again. Really appreciate all the time you spend and coming out on a Thursday night to review this as a member of the Capital Improvement Sales Tax Board. Really appreciate your service and dedication. So before we begin, I wanted to introduce our city's new finance director, Lori Matta. Matta. Do you want to say anything or?
I'm just thrilled to be here. I moved here from Tennessee. I'm on day 3, I think it is.
Oh, wow, okay.
So
I'm real new.
very new to Colorado. I look forward to working with everybody and learning as much as I can and taking some stuff off Kevin's plate for me. So,
Welcome aboard. We look forward to working with you.
thank you.
And also in finance department news, we are hiring a deputy finance director, if you guys know anyone.
And a revenue.
And a revenue manager, so. Any work left to work with.
We get a finder's fee or?
It's usually 20%.
Property tax for 1 year.
Alright, cool. So today, running through the agenda real quick. So first on the agenda, we wanted to go over a little bit of the follow-up that was requested from the last meeting. We did send this out Friday, and so hopefully you had a chance to take a look at it, skim through it or read it. So after we go through that, we'll take some time to review and finalize the report memo that Julie was able to draft, and we sent that out as well, so that we can make edits and finalize that today in preparation for the June 10th or 11th. Whatever that Tuesday is, or when this board presents their report and recommendations to city council. And then we have some time for other discussion. So to begin, we have prepared 2 quick briefings as part of the memo on environmental and fleet. But before we get to that, I just wanted to see if anyone had any questions or comments on the follow-up that was sent out. If you had a chance to do it, or you want a few minutes to maybe brief through it a little bit before we do the brief.
I reviewed all of it. Fantastic job. I think this should probably be a starting point. Like next year as we get going, maybe even try to start with like coming out of that deck of slides that the city council had from their planning session, and if we started with you just explaining some of that. But a lot of great work here, very, very helpful, answered a lot of questions from me.
Cool. Anyone else have any questions before we go on to the briefing portal? All right, cool. And I'm gonna turn it over to our Public Works Director, Fred Sama.
Give me time, I gotta get hooked up here, technology.
While you do it while you're doing that still? I can do it while you're doing that. Yeah, while he's doing that, so the presentation to city council is scheduled right now for June. I did write it down here. June 10th at the city council meeting, so that'll be on the agenda. We'll prepare once you guys finalize the memo. We'll prepare all the other items. We just will attach that to the council memo that goes with that. So you good? All right, awesome.
So there was a question about what kind of environmental sustainability we were doing in 2024. So this is just a list of all the things that I could find that we were doing. So we did participate in the Arapahoe County Regional Electric Vehicle Plan, and that was adopted by their board in April of 2024. And really that plan can be used for us as a reference if we want to try to apply for any kind of future grants for electrification and that kind of stuff. There probably won't be as much in the next few years as there was in the past, but we're hopeful. So second one, we did adopt a storm drainage master plan in January and a sanitary sewer master plan. We participated in a waste diversion study, and that was a $700,000 grant that we received from, the Front Range Waste Diversion, which is run through Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. And that was with a joint project with Inglewood, Sheridan, Centennial, and ourselves. And so last year, a big part was the waste characterization study that was done. And we'll actually be bringing to study session this July, an update to this waste diversion study, and then maybe some policy updates or some policy recommendations for council in August. Also, we have what we call our MS4 permit, which is our municipal stormwater permit. And so we're responsible for inspecting, there's 358 detention and water quality ponds that we're required to inspect as part of that. And also part of our MS4 permit is our illicit discharge program. So anytime we had a sanitary sewer discharge from, I think, one of the churches into Lee Gulch. And so we had to contact the state and we had to have that all mitigated. And, so that's really what that program is really to, stop any illicit discharges. Also, we have our community gardens, and we started a composting program as a part of that. And this year, my understanding is that most of the plots are taken up. So, it's a good program. There's a community garden off of Berry, and then I believe the other one's off of Shepherd. We have our tree subsidy program. So that's a program where we set aside money for increasing tree canopy in some of the disadvantaged neighborhoods within Littleton. Then we also have a spring tree sale, and we sell trees to anybody within Littleton. And let's see, then we have our turf replacement program, and that's a garden in a box. So you can convert your turf using that. We also will have a tree recycling program. We do leaf recycling in the fall. We're also converting all of our electric landscape equipment while converting our gas-powered landscape equipment to electric. I believe this is a state law that we have to have everything converted by the middle of this year, anything 10 horsepower or less. We started an arborist licensing program, and then we're also implementing a forestry management plan. And I just realized there's something I did not put up there is last year we started replacing a lot of our irrigation controllers, and we went to a system where it actually tests the moisture that's in the soil. And so it won't go off unless the soil, needs water, and it's not really based upon whether it's raining or not. It's based upon the moisture in the soil. So that's just kind of a big picture overview of kind of the environmental stewardship stuff we were doing in 2024. We did hire a sustainability coordinator. She is out of the general fund, at least for last year. And then we also hired a green business coordinator last year, and he's being paid out of the plastic bag recycling fees. So, and there's more to come for this year. So there's actually a lot going on as far as stewardship. All right, and then I know we had some questions about our fleet.
The dump truck that has to have a permit, right?
That's right.
The final goodbye.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have a new fleet manager, and he's actually put together a replacement schedule. And this is not something we've really had in the past. So what he would like to do is all of our cars and SUVs and light duty vehicles, he'd like to replace after 10 years or 100,000 miles. And then this is really just an overview of all the replacement. It's basically, we'd like to have, most of our equipment at 10 years. We have some bigger equipment like our sewer jet vac truck, which is a very expensive piece of equipment that we'd like to keep a little bit longer, 15 years. We have some loaders and backhoes that aren't really that high a use, so we want to keep those a little bit longer. And then we have some graders, skid steers, and some trailers and things like that. So he's got a proposed replacement program for all of our different types of equipment.
Right, you said seed money kind of goes into there and helps fund it, and then the departments get charged for,
We have not gotten that far yet. We want to work towards something like that.
gotcha,
Will we charge back to the departments? That's not something that we've done here.
gotcha.
I mean, that's pretty standard practice, but we're
Allocation.
getting
is
to
good.
modernize, I would say. Then I just wanted to share the spreadsheet that our fleet manager had put together. So basically, he put in every vehicle and piece of equipment into the spreadsheet. And then he put the useful life in there. And anything over 10 years is color coded in red. So we have a lot, right? But I will just go down to the bottom of the spreadsheet. So as we go through budgeting, you can see we want to start, I guess, seeding the fleet fund. I know he's got $1 million in for 2025 and 2026. He wants, basically 800,000, and then $1.6 million, and then 2, and just trying to start replacing vehicles. I think we have, so current past due assets, we have 9 million that are, over that 10-year or that 20-year mark. And so what we're trying to do is we're gonna come up with a plan to kind of not replace everything at once and try to, within maybe 10 years, kind of get caught up. And, it's challenging. We hadn't had a real replacement program, so welcome aboard, Lori.
Implemented one.
Yeah, so we're now have a plan, so I guess, I don't know if you guys have any questions, but this is what we're trying to do.
I just want to add, the numbers he's showing here is kind of a first draft.
That is true.
Yeah,
They're
so
not
that is,
adopted.
yeah, and it really, but it does show the reality of how old the fleet is, and the purpose of the seed funding is to help accelerate that.
That's helpful to see, so.
Appreciate a draft.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have shared with the city manager's office, but we have not shared with council or anybody else, so.
One question that came up, someone I was talking to recently was asking about the police vehicles and why we use larger SUVs.
Yeah, so it actually has to do with the amount of SWAT gear. Yeah, so they have so much gear that most of the officers are actually on the SWAT team, and so they need the larger vehicles to store all that gear.
You guys envision anything changing, going back to your electrification plan and your requirements you talked about, and like, is that all fed into?
Yeah, that's all part of this, yeah. And police vehicles are a little bit different because they have such a high idle time, and so they need to be replaced more frequently. And they wreck them, so that's also part of it, so.
I have in terms of the fleet expenditures and planning, is all of the fleet money or fleet replacement costs going to be borne by the capital improvements sales tax thing, or is that, what's the ratio, or what's your intention of?
No, I think,
Seed system.
but you guys did, it's mostly out of the general fund that we fund
Yeah.
vehicles.
So the exception would be if it was something that was directly supporting 3A, so like the vehicles for the Safer Streets Littleton personnel, the FT we added, that vehicle could come out of 3A, but unless it's directly related to 3A projects, it's not going to be. Is that right, Kevin?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, most of these vehicles, because they are police vehicles, are gonna be general fund that we'll be charging back. So the idea is this money will get us a head start. And then once we're able to develop a plan, which is what our fleet manager is working on, then each vehicle is assigned a department, and then we take that whatever department that's assigned to, you would then charge back an annual rate, almost like a lease. It'd just be like a lease back but it would be to the fleet fund. So as Mike said, whatever department has a larger fleet burden is gonna have the larger contribution to the fleet fund.
The initial fleet fund will come out of 3A money. And
Yeah.
that's what we call the seed. your
Yep, yep,
seed.
yep.
And what's the total amount?
So this year it is, I have the breakdown here. So the total, amount to the fleet fund, so. Oh, here it is. So, in 2024, there was a contribution of $550,000 to the fleet fund. In 2023, there was $550,000. So from 23 and 24 combined, about 1.1.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you prioritize areas where, it's high or something? I understand that the year, the plan you're talking about.
Yeah, so really, right now, it's prioritized on the useful life, right? And well, all these Tahoes, you can see they have a 5-year useful life and those are all police vehicles. And the good news is the police is pretty decent shape. We only have a few that are in the red, but. Yeah, so really it's prioritized by useful life and mileage too. So once it gets to that 100,000 miles, we'd like to get rid of it because then it kind of loses its trade-in value, right?
Okay.
This is quite a spreadsheet he put together. There's, I don't know how many vehicles we've got, 300 and some.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it also gets, this is very easy, but it also gets difficult as price changes in vehicles right now.
That's true, yeah. We don't know how the tariffs will, or if they will affect them or not, so.
So we monitor all of that, but cool. All right, any other questions on the follow-up or any other questions before we go into talking about the repair?
The $150 million, whatever it was you guys quoted last time in deferred maintenance improvements and everything, does that include the 9 million there for the fleet or are those separate?
I don't know if that includes that.
I don't believe, we didn't actually have a plan last year.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, that unfunded does not include all the replacement.
And just give a little history. So in the past, vehicles have had to meet their capital projects. So every year when we would do the budget process, a replacement vehicle would have to compete with a street paving or fixing a road or a bridge or a drainage ditch. Well, not really drainage ditch because that's sewer, but other infrastructure. And so the purpose of this is so that those vehicles, because you're gonna have to replace the vehicles at some point. It's a known cost coming up. So instead of having it compete with other infrastructure projects, this just makes it so that there's always a cycle of replacing vehicles. And so that was the purpose of creating a fleet.
I know we asked some of the same questions like 3 years ago when we first started doing this. And the answers were not of the quality that you guys are giving us today. I can definitely see that there is a plan. I have more confidence.
Yeah, there's more direction to it, so that's helpful.
A lot of it's built off the work from everyone for 3 years before us too. Appreciate that.
You take credit for it.
wish PJ was here so he could. But, all right, cool. Well, let's move into the report. Julia, you mind if I put you on the spot? You wanna go through it? And
that's fine.
I'm just gonna turn it over to you guys.
Sure. Okay, so this is just the same memo kind of outline that we had last year. So kind of I took everybody's comments in the meeting. So really just kind of the executive summary just hits on, our initial meeting on April 30th, who was there. We reviewed the annual report that they had put together. And discussed the future projects that are sitting out there, scope and purpose of that. Based on our review, we didn't see any issues with the funds being spent, not in conformance with ballot language, so it looked like everything was kind of in conformance, didn't see any issues there. And then looking at really just the budget plan moving forward, just to see if we see potential issues with ballot language for where the funds are being used in the future, so no issues there. So with the funds being spent, we really just talked about, what came in during the calendar year, about 12.8 million, and then, I need to fix that. During the year ended 23, total approximately 8.8 million spent. Is that 24? Oh, yes, I need to change that date, that second bullet point, 2024. So 8.8 million was spent, and then just saying that we've got, as of 12/31, 21.7 in funds still to be spent of the fund. And so expenditures outside of ballot language, which all we're really just saying is we didn't note any funds that were spent that were outside of ballot language that we saw. And then right now we don't have any recommendations regarding the utilization. And then just additional comments, we just said that we commend the staff on continuing to provide planning, prioritization, context of information with where 3A funds are gonna go. And then just continuing to provide community with information. So like Big B's Littleton webpage, also Littleton report, and I saw that front page came out this week. And then the continued recommendation that we add a member of the Environmental Stewardship Board to this board, so I think that was hopefully encompassed all the comments we had. Besides just changing that 1 year, does anybody have any thoughts or comments?
Just a quick one. Percent of right before the.
Okay.
Approximately 21.7 of.
Oh, I was there, thank you.
Yes. Not substantive, but. Yes.
I like new wording. Okay, sure, let's do it.
So there was a comment you made last time about the equity across the neighborhood. I think that's still a bit of an open question that we have. And you mentioned there were paving of the streets or something.
Yeah, the what is it called?
Resurfacing.
Resurfacing plan. And then, I don't know if that's something that's directly germane to this report this year, but I think it's listed in this, one of these documents, it's just one of the major, like a $30 million mill and overlay plan. But it sounds good. Frank said that we're gonna be hitting all of them over the next 5 years. Basically, all the students are gonna be hit.
Yeah, if I remember right, your comment last time specifically was Aberdeen Village and Arapahoe Village were listed.
We had a lot of expenditure on it.
And there was a lot of money spent, especially at Aberdeen Village, because it was a complete reconstruction project, which is a pretty intensive treatment. I think that hopefully we'll see a lot less intensive treatments like that and more preservation work, which is, allows us to obviously stretch out the work further throughout the neighborhood. And certainly our goal is to be equitable, making sure that we're providing improvements throughout the city. Fortunately for us, our city is only 14 square miles. And so it's relatively easy to make sure we get, every part of the city. Kevin came from San Antonio. That was much more challenging. And certainly larger cities like Denver have some greater concerns. But if you were to look at just last year by itself, I think equity is a fair question, especially because of those specific projects. I think that because of the size of our city and the size of our funds, looking at it from a multi-year perspective will allow you to recognize the equity a lot better than just a single year snapshot.
Great, you said there's a pavement conditions evaluation going on right now with.
There is, yeah.
Or something, right?
I was looking for the map.
The numbers, by the way, are on page 2. It's the, with the blue stripes, it's the second page. It looks like, this is a projection, if I understand this document correctly, projection of the next upcoming projects through 2029. And it looks like the annual, it's the third one on the page. Annual mill and overlay project and annual street rehabilitation project. That's estimated 29 million over. Now, I assume that inflation and other costs will change this number, that this will be, this is a guesstimate based on current costs. That number will probably be different by 2029, just given the realities of street. So in terms of budgeting, and there's a number of PBDs on this list. So, it's hard to say what kind of funds from 3A will be. Approximately how much of the mill overlay budget is 3A?
So, overlay, so for in 2025, which includes the amendment we just did, we put in, so 2025, we have 1.7 million for mill and overlay and 2.4 million for annual street rehabilitation, specifically. But for the total pavement management, it's 4.9 million in 2025. So I'll repeat that again. So total pavement management in 3A is 4.9 million. Of that amount, 1.3 million is for annual mill and overlay, and 2.4 million is for the annual street rehabilitation. And then there's a couple individual projects that are more carryover from last year that's closing out, but those are for new projects that we plan to start this year.
Those $2 and $1.3 million numbers you're citing are the annual contributions that we expect 3A to contribute to the mill and overlay project.
2025.
That was just in that's
Yeah.
for the upcoming year, this current year.
Each year is a little different, but it averages, it changes year to year, but it averages anywhere from about,
4.
yeah, so for pavement management particularly, if you look on actually attachment,
Should have a spreadsheet.
Kevin, how much additional money went through reservation in 25 outside of 3A?
outside of 3A, I don't have that in front of me right now.
It's at least 1.5 million.
Yeah, it's at least 1.5 million because we have the 1.8 million for the transfer, the fire department. So when the fire department left,
When we joined the district.
when they joined the district, that budget, portion of that budget that we use for the fire department was transferred to the capital project fund. So that was about 1.8 million, 1.7 million last year. And that is all generally dedicated for pavement management. And then we have,
The HUTF.
TDF fund, so the highway user tax fund, that's about 1.6 million there. And then, actually, when I said I didn't need that,
Don't have the funds.
oh,
Was
okay.
that your question?
So it sounds like somewhere between 50 and 60% of mill overlay and street
From 3A,
from 3A, with several million coming out from
other sources.
sources.
So
Yeah,
we do have a pavement management plan through 2029. This is actually 2026, so that just shows you, let's see, I think in 2026, we have $8.75 million worth of work scheduled. 2027, we have 8.5 million, 28, 8.3 million, and then 29, we have right around 7 million. So I can,
so 26, 28, and 29 are the big years, really. These other years look quite, 350K. 1.3, okay. And that all, the summation of all of that is in why attachment 2, page 2 has 29 million. That's really the
Yeah,
the over sum total of all
yeah, that,
projects.
So I guess what I'm sharing is basically, this is our pavement management plan through 2029. And
But some of that, on that is not from three A.
that's true.
Just-
There's
Right.
probably about half, you think?
Or a little more than half.
Yeah, a little more than half.
yeah. I wanted to mention one thing. You mentioned about the TBDs, and I didn't get a chance to explain why there's TBDs on this list. The reason why is because these are some of the major projects, for example, the Bellevue Service Center and the Hall Arts. Those are in the slideshow that we showed council that we're looking at debt funding. We didn't want to put a dollar amount to those just because we're still going through some of those costing prices, but those are some big projects. And that's why we put it on the list, is so now we're aware that staff is working on planning a lot of those projects. We just don't have a dollar amount for them. Or we didn't want to put a dollar amount here yet. We do have an estimated amount that we're using for the debt revision, but that's why there's some TBDs. We wanted to show that we're still working on it, even if we don't have a full amount.
I was a little surprised to see the Geneva Village renovations, but I guess that's the lodge, so we're gonna try and keep that in good shape through the long
As long as we can.
road to the RFP and et cetera, okay?
But definitely different from Geneva Village.
Yeah. Well, it just says Geneva Village.
Can I ask, in 2025 budget, this would be on page 5, very end of the packet. Is the big jump in transportation and spending, on roads in there, but on road, as I recall, somewhere around 5 million from the city contribution standpoint. Or the rest of the 5 million, because that's a pretty big increase over.
Yeah,
Are there some other large scale projects, or is this just the end of the ramp for some of the stuff that was in design and?
yeah, so the big things that are in transportation, but in the transportation and bridges, the 10.9 million is we have 2.6 for Euclid Avenue Complete Street, 2.6 for Santa Fe and Mineral, which we anticipate getting repaid through debt, but we have to put up the cash first. And then we have a $2 million contribution to the Littleton Broadway pedestrian walkway project, which if you're unfamiliar, there was a drainage.
Dip it out, build
yeah,
build an underpass anyway.
Yeah, so that's what that's for. So those are the major ones coming out of there.
Is that underpass gonna be built in 2025?
It's gonna be.
Yes.
Started.
Yeah.
It keeps raining, we might have to build it faster. but-
Or I might build it for you.
Yeah,
A couple of just broad comments. I think that the breakdown of the new hires was really helpful and correctly, that's just some of the questions we had last time. I also think that this material, even though it's a 5-year plan, I think this type of, no one's gonna hold you to exact numbers or exact dates, but this is the type of document that I think me personally says, okay, well, these folks that are over here on, page 8 or whatever, this is what they're working. There's quite a few projects in here. Some of them are pretty significant design challenges, I think that opens some of the gap for some of the open questions we had last time. Well, hired 9 people, what are they doing? And I know it's not 9 people, but it's validated. Point, hired 9 FTEs, what are they doing? And I think this forward-looking document, it's extremely useful to see the scale and scope of the types of projects that are on the horizon, which some of these are complicated and warrant some intense project management design professionals. So I think all of these additions are super helpful just to close the gap on how funds are being spent today. Personnel.
I think one thing that might be useful in this particular layout, I agree with Dave's comments, it's good to see the long range plan. might be just a secondary number in here that's what you guys see, what your team sees as the 3A contribution to these projects. Like, we have a courthouse minor rehabilitation for 3.725 million. It says attachment 2 at the top, it doesn't have, it's the second page, I think, of the blue stripes. You know, you have these numbers that are quite large, and just so that we have a perspective on what you guys are thinking, the 3A contribution to these things. In other words, the conversation we just had about the annual mill overlay and what ratio of 3A money is expected to flow into that, just might be nice to know that of the, $2.5 million of the fire alarm replacements there, you're thinking 3A will be half of it, 20%. I don't know how these numbers are generated, but, because I look at these numbers and they're huge, they're bigger than 3A money at all. So, what are our future, what would citizens expect our capital improvement sales tax to be doing? What do you expect to be doing? I guess the question I'd like to know when I look at this chart. Because clearly we're not gonna do all of these with 3A, but I don't know if it's a small percent or a large percent.
That's definitely something, yeah, we can include that, next
As
year.
Jake said, no one's gonna hold you to the numbers, but just what the intended idea of 3A's contribution there would be. Maybe useful.
Yeah, I think these are all really great comments for what we present in our first meeting next year, including what you said about this initial information, the 5-year plan, and that, I'll write those down so that we can include those in our initial meeting next year. These are great comments.
Yeah, I had particular concern about the amount of money we're rolling over every year. Now I can see in 2025, got this huge slug, so I see what you're saving for, and I think it's wise to be, be conservative and to not overspend, but at some point, you gotta dip into that reserve, and I think we see that now. So as much as we're not appropriating this money, I still think part of our job is make sure the funds are being spent, not just that they're being spent in the appropriate buckets. So it's helpful to see like, we're saving that for this big project with projects that cumulatively are quite expensive. So I think that alleviates some of the concern we had over the last 2 years of why are we rolling over so many funds. I know 2025, there's still a little bit more funds, which is, again, we spend every last penny.
Right.
Certainly not my personal take, but it definitely helps to see that number go from rolling over 1 million, going over aggregate in 8 million. So I think that's.
Yeah, and a lot of that is, I think this is just a part of things that I always tell people, every dollar is really accounted for, even in the fund balance, because like you said, that 8 million, we have to reserve that for future debt payments. And so, we appreciate that. Yeah, we do a lot of, sometimes we're always nervous about sharing the 5-year plans that, because it always changes. It's like, you put something out there and you say, hey, we're gonna do this, and then something happens and it changes and someone comes back to.
Jackass Hill blows out in the rain. And
Yeah. So we appreciate the comments and the understanding.
That would never be.
One thing that we discussed last time was on page 1 of the annual report, with the 3A capital improvement fund. We had the environmental sustainability, and we were saying there's no money allocated there, but we definitely spent money there, and it was probably a matter of categorization. So is the idea to maybe do that next year, or?
I got a recommendation and
Yeah, so we had looked at it, well, actually, do you want to speak to it, or I can go? Okay, so we had looked at it and we asked, so Public Works, their team went and took a look to say, okay, how can we monetize or put a number to this, quantify it, and really at the end of the day, it was difficult. There wasn't enough confidence in a quantitative number that represented because of all that goes into it. So for example, what Brent shared, he shared a lot of information of environmental projects that we're doing. Some of those weren't 3A, and it's because there's a lot of environmental put into different things, and so
What percent of the sprinklers that measure the rain, you know?
Yeah, and-
Moisture.
and so it really, it was turning into more of a guess and more of like a, well, I guess maybe 20% goes into it, and so, public work, we just didn't feel confident to throw a number out there, cause it felt a little disingenuous.
Well, I don't think we actually spent a bunch of 3A money on all those projects. A lot of that's open space money and just, regular, just Fund 34, which is our maintenance. I think in the future, with our sustainability coordinator on, and she's actually working on she's almost done with the greenhouse gas inventory, and then she's gonna work on a climate action plan. So that's another one of those planning documents, like, we have our fleet fund that we want to replace in 10 years. That's something that she'll put together for us, on what we should be spending in the future. I think there's more to come. I don't know, she's been here 6 months yet. Probably 7 or 8 months now, so.
Right, yeah.
The piece that I was thinking about along those lines, like, okay, we don't want to put it in there. But if you look at some of the benefits of what we're doing here and like our conversation with the council last year, and we've talked about this, like, there's a huge opportunity to help, build confidence, and through the transparency and comments we make and everything. And, last year we went in there and talked about that, in great detail. And I think that there's a lot of questions that people ask, that consume you guys' time, and maybe just a little bit of what we're doing here, can help close some of that gap, hopefully. But I think when it comes to this particular topic, if you don't want to put it in there, perhaps we should note somewhere that the details regarding sustainability are found over here in these reports, or something like that. Just to close the gap of any questions for those that want to.
And to not have it be empty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it just visually, it could be good to reference something else there, yeah.
We talked about this a little bit last time, but I assume that many of these upgrades, there's a sustainability component embedded in them, just because you're putting better control systems, BAS systems, higher efficiency, HVAC units, better windows. So I
Mobile improvements are sustainability focused.
correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I can understand how hard it is, kind of dollar value to that. I think qualitatively, it's probably embedded in some of that stuff, and maybe that's as far as realistically you can go. But I think that's still worth it to say, well, many of the improvements, most of which are unsexy, are actually advance the sustainability cause quite a bit. Swapping out a 30-year-old unit that's sort of on its last leg, that's a pretty significant increase in efficiency. So I don't know how to embed that comment in here, but I think it's in here, and so I think it would hurt to speak to it. So I think it's already done.
I think residents will appreciate, like,
Yeah.
we're doing a lot of this stuff, but we could BS this number as much as we want, because it's really, it's subjective, but we're making significant progress.
Yeah, I think you can give yourself some credit.
We'll go back and see what kind of statement.
Specifically in the coming years, right?
Yeah.
And so I like the recommendation, that you're giving to council.
One particular topic, I know we talked about this a little bit, is the downtown project. So I spoke to some people that are deeply engaged in that project, and I didn't walk away with a warm and fuzzy feeling that they knew what was going on. And I think I'm concerned about the money we have here for that project, but I'm really concerned about the disconnects regarding the communications with that particular group. One of the individuals I work with, his comment was they're viewed as party planners today, and less about developing the downtown. I personally am in favor of using the money in whatever way that creates the most value for the city. And that may not be downtown, but either way, there appears to be like this underlying disconnect in the decision-making process somewhere.
Communication specific.
Yes. I don't know what you do to close that, but do we have like any line of sight to when a decision would be made on that money that's in here as well as the large downtown project?
Yeah, our council is solidifying kind of on that currently, so. And then going back to the communication piece, we know we need to upgrade our communications game with our community on almost everything we do. We have a new communications and marketing director that's really helping kind of our communications part of the organization evolve into that more effective communicator. But no, specifically on Project Downtown, our council seems to be solidifying on using some debt to fund and get that project going. I think that could be part of the budget approval for 2026. Certainly we'll know as we get into that. Kevin's budget timeline, we'll be back in front of council.
August 10th we're talking about.
Yeah. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, beginning of August. I don't know.
We're having a capital projects discussion, including debt with council. So getting some commitment from them that this is the direction we're going. So, and it seems to be lining up that way if I'm reading the tea leaves, that they're wanting to see that project move forward. Some of them very, very adamantly, and other ones are kind of saying, well, what are all the needs and how does that compare, so.
Have they, you finished, sorry.
Yeah, I'm under describing the gap there. It's substantial. It was a very disappointing conversation. I think we're losing people pretty quick on that project.
Yeah, we'll follow the direction from council, but I think that, if a majority says, yep, we're moving forward, then we can really, get the engine going and build up that community awareness and include them in the full design of the project, right?
Yeah.
Right now, we have a concept that's been approved. So design and construction is a very different phase from conceptual.
Really.
I mean, it builds off it, obviously, but the community engagement portion and communication will be a real big part of that.
Has that project had we're gonna spend 27.5 million or whatever it is in this next phase? This is how we think that the economic activity has that return on investment.
Yeah, so we're conducting an economic feasibility or economic impact study right now. So that August discussion, we will be able to present that. That'll be one of the ways that informs their decision.
With what they're doing this summer, and this is me asking you to read even more tea leaves.
Yeah.
But now that they've approved the concept and whatever decisions they're gonna be making this summer, we know quite a few of those people are up for reelection.
Yeah,
There'll be significant change.
Yeah.
Once they're down on this path, how easy is it for them to claw back later? Once we get new council members on.
That's a scary.
Yeah, what my concern is, and this is just me, this has nothing to do with this, is like, are we gonna start, stop,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
big stuff, or like, are we kind of going down this
No, but that's
path?
a great question. So certainly a current council can't bind a future council, right? So future councils are able to make whatever decisions they want to make at that point in time. But money that's spent is money that's spent, right? And so they can't, unspend it, so to speak. And so if this council approves debt, some of that debt won't be needed until later on, right? But the stuff that gets us going and ignited this year will be obligated. And so
Momentum.
a future council could say push pause, but that won't undo what's already been spent. And really, to your point, where you're talking about feelings and every time you engage and invest in people have feelings involved. And I think that anybody who's a representative of the people responds to feelings at some level, and so there will be some level of momentum that goes forward. Now, that said, I've seen councils swing on things before, and sometimes election issues are that specific. Hey, I'm for this, I'm against this, and sometimes, it goes that way. But I get the feel, like right now, the people who have filed for their committees, they seem to be all like people who want to see the city, you know, have a bright future. And so I'm, right now, I don't think there's gonna be a dramatic swing.
Thanks for reading those tea leaves.
Yeah. Of course,
Your opinion and
you
you
can get my next job if I'm
I know.
wrong.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it would just be a shame to see kind of what's starting to get really momentum around some of
Really
this
cool
stuff,
momentum.
just, yeah, so,
Yeah.
so much has been put into it.
Yeah, you know, there's different political discussions that are happening in our community, but I don't really see that on things like this. You know, generally, in fact, some of the people who are most conservative on housing density are also big proponents of Project Downtown. So it's interesting how you line up behind different things.
And just so I'm clear, I'm not saying that there's a disconnect that you guys can close by yourself.
No,
It's
you're
staff.
right, you're right. Yeah. But in the end, the city is the city. That is us, so. But thank you.
The only comment I had on the memo itself is really good. Good. Well, positive one is, I mentioned this briefly last time, but I think it's worthwhile. It's a minor comment, but the city should be posting signs when they make these large projects funded by.
Your nickel,
capital
that's what it's paying
improvement.
for.
Yeah,
That's a good
point. It's, Denver did that really, really well with better Denver bonds. Was 2012. And I think it's a marketing opportunity, but it's also patting yourselves on the back, which is good for everybody's morale. It's also helpful the next time you want to go to the voters or something. So a lot of this stuff is not, no one notices the road that doesn't have a pothole in it.
Yeah.
You gotta take credit for it on front end. It's a small thing, but honestly, especially with some of this larger projects, you know, some of some of the trail connectivity. Small comment, but put a sign up.
Yeah, I like that.
No.
Great feedback.
Yeah.
Mention that.
Yeah, I think it also ties in to the federal matching funds, you know, and just telling that whole story like
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
All the benefits that citizens receive from all the work that's been done.
I think, you know, a healthy amount of skepticism is good. I'm a proponent of skepticism, but cynicism is bad. So I think this is the kind of messaging that's like, hey, putting your money to work. In ways you might not immediately notice, but.
Yeah, like, Eddie, where would Littleton be if we hadn't passed 3A? You know, if I financially, like, I mean, that's the other path that we couldn't take it, right? Where would we have gotten all the money to do all these projects? Yeah.
And you know, like unseen benefits of that, but we have a candidate, you know, that came in as our new chief financial officer from across the country, right? And as she's reviewing everything, it's like, one of the things she brought up was, hey, that 3A tax is pretty cool. You know? And from a public works perspective, oh man, I mean, Brent is so fortunate to have this. When I was the public works director, I wish I would have had a dedicated fund, you know? Really incredible from a planning perspective and a morale perspective and just getting stuff done. You know, public works people like to build stuff and this is really cool.
I do like some of the project spotlights that you guys have in Littleton report about some of the things that are going
Yeah.
on, like more in depth, so. I love that Littleton report. That's my gig.
Thank you.
And I do like that map that's on Big Things Littleton. I think that has like the project plans and stuff.
Webpage too, that shows all the projects that are gonna affect your commute. So.
Detours brought to you by 3A.
See where we're gonna
Radio.
affect your commute.
We can do like an article called Detours,
Seriously,
brought to you by 3A.
Yes.
this is gonna start for real. Mineral Santa Fe, pretty near future and.
Yeah,
Broadway and-
Costco.
Yeah, Mineral is already feeling it, yeah.
Yeah, I was seeing in that Q3, construction starts on that, so that's really gonna go. That's exciting.
That's
So,
the Santa Fe mineral.
yeah, the quad.
How much do we think that'll impact traffic?
The quad road?
Yeah.
So at first it'll be looky-loos, right? Cause it'll be off of Santa Fe. So most of the work that they will happen in this first kind of, you know, first, you'll be just looking at it, you'll be rubbernecking, right? But eventually it'll be right in the intersection and there will be significant impacts.
Is it gonna be like night that they're working or all during the day?
I think it'll be
Yeah,
just like what Douglas County's doing, you know, by by C-470. I mean, in order to get it done, you gotta do construction in that
And
time.
from a safety perspective, day work is just so much safer for the employees, the workers.
Yeah. Those stoplights down there just still creep, they blow my mind. How the traffic flows down there
Yeah,
at Murdoch's.
it's interesting. Alright, so since you mentioned Costco, I'll give you all a tip, okay?
Okay.
This next Wednesday at 11:30, they're planning on knocking over the tower. So if you happen to be down in that area watching, you might get a little show.
Wednesday at 11:30.
Exactly 11:30 is their goal.
Nice.
So it's pretty propped up and so it should be quite the toppling.
Is there gonna be explosions or just?
It's toppling.
I was hoping for explosions.
Well, it'll look and feel like that. It's a pretty significant size of
Yeah.
material.
It's been interesting watching them take that whole thing apart. I would be curious to know kind of why they did what they did and the methodology,
Yeah.
so.
Well, so there was a part of it that was asbestos and they were able to disassemble it and go take it somewhere else to be demolished,
Gotcha.
which was really fantastic.
Yeah. I was hoping for big explosions and done,
Yeah.
Vegas style, casino.
So one caveat I'll put on that is it was supposed to be this Wednesday, but because of the weekend rain
Yeah.
and mud and everything on site, they put it off by week. So if it rains again this weekend,
Gotcha.
maybe not.
How soon are they thinking that whole project will be done?
You know, the goal right now is to open up Costco in the first quarter of next year.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
Every time I go up to Sheridan now, I'm like, I don't wanna do this anymore.
Right there, man. So
I can ride my bikes.
Yeah.
I will,
Yeah.
if there's bike.
You're gonna get like, you have to use
Okay.
that cottage.
you're gonna have to get a big trailer to pull everything home.
Yes, yeah. My kids were talking about, that's one of the best options for food now for heritage students. Cause they can ride their bike right across the canal and over
Oh,
the
yeah.
$1.50 hot dogs and stuff,
Oh.
Cause Littleton and Arapahoe have Chipotle's across the street and everything like that, and they're kind of in a little desert there, so.
Yeah.
So they'll be jealous of the Heritage having the Portillo's and In-N-Out,
Yeah.
Costco.
Yeah. That would be big news, the second one.
Yeah.
Did anybody else have any comments on I feel like. The questions I had last time, I feel like are addressed well in this material. I don't know if anyone's got any.
I have one other comment. I was thinking about like how we have all of you guys and individuals that are coming from these other boards. And then I went back to my notes from last time and I realized like there's probably an opportunity for us to figure out how to like maybe have you guys speak about, what's going on in that board as it specifically relates. Yeah, and I was thinking about that like on the, the safer streets and everything, because I'm asking questions. You actually know the answers or, could make a few comments and probably cut out like 5 questions I ask or something like that. So perhaps, we could find a way to weave that in conjunction with your presentation and, next year, like starting off and then moving into like some other board update. I don't know exactly what would be the right fit, but I'd just like to hear maybe more of that on the front end of us getting together.
All right, so I think we've got a couple of minor edits to the memo that I'll make and send to Kevin. Got a couple of talking points.
Yep.
Should we do the same kind of thing as we did last year, you and I? Does anybody else have an interest in going or?
Depends on when.
I think it's, yeah, do they have us on the first part of the agenda or?
I don't know, they keep putting everything right here. And
For last.
Also, it's always ADUs and then a budget update the last few times, so I don't know if we're doing more on ADUs. The fine code or.
You only see.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I know there was, I think our first year where there was 2 things. They had to do like a break because they were doing a performance review thing and then there was something else really volatile that people came to speak about. So I think we finally got on at about 10:15 at night.
I will try to make it up to you this year. We'll see. if we
That's
can-
fine. Yeah, I was just thinking we could just get in and get out and. Yeah.
I promised me 8:45 No, 8:30. 50 when we got.
I owe you one, man. I owe you one.
First on the agenda this time.
Yeah,
Yeah, I learned a lot about I know more about ADUs. I never thought I would.
yeah.
That's the real heart of power in the city. Who sets the order of the agenda?
Well, the board can advocate for you at the agenda review.
I'm getting,
John.
I was
Yeah,
looking,
get the in and out, yeah.
I was trying to look at the agenda they put, I got one today, but it's not for the 10th. June 3rd, that's what I was looking for.
It is a study
This
session.
is the third.
Yes. Does the 3rd tell us anything about that one? I'm really new, can you?
It's on the future.
Yeah, so it's the 10th and not the 3rd?
I think it's,
It should be the 10th.
They go on vacation at some point, right?
after the 10th.
10th?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the,
On the-
I've been putting the 10th everywhere, so hopefully it's.
Yeah, I had the 3rd on there for some reason.
Yeah, it's a decision today, so we should be able to plot it, but.
But it's
It is June 10th, and you are the only item on there as of now.
Oh, okay, so is it a study session or
It's a
actual?
study session.
Okay, it's a study session, okay.
And yeah, so I, this late in the game, I think that's fair to say that you'll be first for sure, almost for sure. And it's probably likely you're the only item, so.
6:30 start?
6:30 start.
Okay.
And no comments about if we should have additional housing in Littleton or anything in front of us.
Yeah.
We could have, it'll be quick.
I just remember that first year, former director of finance, I was really hammering her on spending too much money for something, you know? And then.
Oh,
we
the
sat-
IT, yeah, it was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
workforce software, I think, or something like that.
Workday or-
Yeah, Workday, yeah.
Yeah.
Birthday. Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize I was gonna sit next to her for another 4 hours.
Hey.
Workday sales, engineers,
Yeah.
that call like, stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't put him on till after 3 o'clock.
I think she realized that I just naturally do that.
It is, ERP systems are worth that, and it happens in every city whenever there's a ERP change. And it's worthy of being, skeptical, I'm very appreciative of what we have with Workday right now and how it's working. But it's not problem-free and it's not criticism-free.
Yeah, I think when you go through an ERP version, we're going through one right now. I don't think you really have any idea of how massive it is with the
Painful
scope,
it is.
painful, and how long it takes until you've slogged through one and
And the amount of human hours they have to pay to trans.
mental health.
This one here is my third
calls.
ERP. It's my career.
Yeah, but it's change and there's always, always trying to make things better. So
That's right.
yeah, I definitely know that there's always kinks to be worked out. So I have a greater respect for that. So
April was our 1 year mark with the Workday. And it's the big difference having done everything in a full cycle now.
yes, yeah.
And that was a 5-year deal.
Oh, hopefully it'll be good for us for more than that, but yeah, generally at least 5 years, yeah. No, you gotta wait till people forget how painful it was, right?
Bigger commitment, yeah, I think they can give it to.
10 year, there we go, 10 year.
I'd get a 10-year deal.
I don't think there's ever a software that does it all and is wonderful,
No.
so.
I talked to some consultants on ERPs and they said nowadays even ERPs there's no perfect ERP out there anymore.
Yeah.
It's like they all have something that there's always something.
Yeah, you have
Unless
to.
you're talking to a salesperson, and then of course there's.
Oh, yeah, there's-
Oh, yeah. Yep, yeah, there's a lot of workarounds you have to do and changes in processes and it's not, I think everybody assumes it's gonna be wonderful and save a lot of time and.
And it does, in some areas.
Yeah, some areas, it's like, so.
Anyway, so it sounds like are we good on the report, plan of action?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll make updates, send them to you and then we'll plan on being here the 10th at 6:30 to present and get comments.
Awesome.
Anybody who does come is welcome to sit at the table.
Julie, thank you again for taking the lead on the drafting.
Oh, yeah, no worries. I'm like a Navy SEAL, get in, kick butt, take names.
Yeah.
So,
I'm gonna figure out what to write up for a report to the Transportation Mobility Board, so about everything they found, so yeah.
yeah.
Ricky has to do it next week on his.
Which board are you on again?
Next gen.
Okay. Are you guys fully staffed on your board now?
We're with one open seat. Turned over about half of the two, so
How's the engagement with your group?
It's good. It's good. There's a lot of energy, a lot of feelings, which is what you want. So now we're just kind of trying to make sense of it so we can be action focused this year.
Awesome. Great.
Is
All
there
right, well,
anything
thanks,
you guys
everybody.
need from us? that we wanna Discuss though?
No, I think this was, I think we're good.
In the recording, if that's okay.
Sounds good.